Hi there, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our admissions panel, our second one of the day. We have four great schools with terrific MBA programs that we're going to talk about this morning. It's morning for me, may not be morning for you. I'm in Northern California. We have people in New York, Arizona, and California as well. So we have Holly Curtis at NYU Stern School of Business, who is at her family's home outside New York City, where she probably wants to be, as opposed to inside New York City, where Lawrence Murray at Fordham is in Midtown Manhattan. We have Rebecca from ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business in warm, sunny, I hope, Arizona, where it's really beautiful. And we have Shani Mahalu from Pepperdine University out there in California with one of the most beautiful campuses in the world, right on the Pacific Ocean, a place to die for to be, right? Anyway, so one thing I wanted to cover is most schools have extended their admission cycles due to the pandemic. Most schools were headed sort of like a June 1 deadline. Some of you have even longer deadlines, like Rebecca's final deadline is July 15th. But I'm wondering what you saw during the extended deadlines. Did you get much of an increase in applications or not? Holly?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you to John and Poets and Quants for having us here. So yes, at NYU Stern, we extended our deadline to, it just passed on May 15th. This was an extension from a March 15th deadline. And so this was absolutely the right decision to make for a lot of reasons. One, of course, was interest. So we did see more applications from students in the US and around the world who now had an additional opportunity to apply to Stern. And with all that was going on in terms of options for being able to take a test and other delays that would happen in the application process, we did see additional apps come through and people take advantage of this extension.
Yeah, Rebecca?
Yeah, thank you so much, John. And to echo Holly's words, really appreciate you having us here. We've seen a similar instance here. So our standard deadline is April 1st. And so we made the decision to extend our deadline into July 15th, which again, we feel has been very beneficial. We have seen in the Phoenix area a lot of interest coming from our local population as well. So being able to work with them and work with this kind of extended, cramped time period to try and apply and start in the fall, it's been very beneficial for us. And so we're happy to be able to offer that option to a lot of students who maybe didn't think there was enough time.
Right. And Lawrence, over at Fordham, have you seen a similar bump?
Yes, definitely. And again, thank you all for having us. We're excited to be here. Yes, we've extended our deadline into July, and we've seen a steady pickup in our working professionals program, primarily our part-time MBA program, our executive MBA program, but we've also seen an increase in interest in our full-time MBA program as well. We're a school with a large portfolio of specialized masters. So when we extended our deadlines, we did some other things with the domestic population to really drive some interest in our specialized master's programs from domestic students that might now find themselves at a crossroads and not know what to do, especially those folks who were just graduating in May of 2020, or maybe they started in their jobs last year and they now find themselves at a crossroads.
Right. And Shani, how about you at Pepperdine?
Yes, so the same. We also extended our deadlines. We also have a big portfolio of programs, including MSs. Our full-time MBA specifically was extended until May 18th, and I think that our prospective students were very happy about that, and definitely we saw a big increase. We also have a part-time MBA that we recruit for 3 starts per year. So right now we're in the middle of it, and we recruit until July 17th. So that gives many people another option. And to tell a real story, we had a full-time MBA student that got sick with COVID, unfortunately, and he was in the hospital for 40 days. So the big portfolio, and thankfully he's well and back to the recruitment cycle, and now he's applying for the part-time MBA. So it's nice to see that we provide options to our candidates.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I'm wondering if some of the accommodations that were made and the additional flexibility that was put into this latest admission cycle, will that get pushed forward into the new admission cycle for 2020, 2021? I don't, maybe it's too early to tell or not. I know there's only one school that has actually now said they're going to accept MCATs and LSATs into the new year. And they also, after the success of their extended round, they're adding for the first time a round 4. The 4 of you, Shani, do you think that some of the accommodations, flexibility that the school provided will get pushed into the new admission season or not?
Absolutely, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and I think, and I hear that a lot from colleagues in the industry and also internally in the school that I talk with, specifically about how some of the things that we're introducing now were always something we thought about, but they were never a priority. And COVID made it a priority, and now it's working so well. For example, switching to being in the virtual space and hosting events and making the GMAT optional. And I'll let the colleague here share as well, but I would love to see them carry over beyond the fall into the future.
Yeah, and many test centers are still closed for both GMAT and GRE. So you would think it would call for some flexibility, particularly in the round 1s that will be coming up in September and October. Lawrence, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think this has given us an opportunity to reimagine the admissions process, both from an applicant evaluation standpoint as well as a recruiting standpoint. I think we shunned a little bit the online virtual events pre-COVID, but I think if you can do this right, you can really expand your reach in the online space. We had a admitted student weekend virtual first when we sort of condensed a 3-day event down into about 3 weeks. But that 3-week event gave us an opportunity for students to sit in on 5 classes, right? So if we would have done that in person, they would have only got to sit in on 1 class.
Right.
We had a series of panels that we just would have never been able to bring those people in to New York City to be able to do that. On the admission side, there's no doubt that we've spent now a lot more time thinking about the type of work experience that folks bring and placing a stronger emphasis on the interview and thinking about that fit and that thought process of why students are pursuing these degrees and sort of how it fits into their short-term and long-term goals and objectives. So yes, I hope we plan on integrating this into the fabric of who we are in the newly imagined world post-COVID.
Yeah, Rebecca?
Yeah, I would certainly echo. I think that we're all finding these COVID silver linings, if you will, in the necessity to innovate and do things that we've said we always should have done. So we're doing the same, like Lawrence, we hosted our countdown weekend, our admitted student weekend for the first time in a virtual format. And we were nervous to do it, but it ended up being absolutely incredible. And I think that we found some opportunities that we didn't have before, in that we were able to welcome a lot of our international students who wouldn't have been able to join us previously. So that's been a huge benefit with a lot of our prospective student events. And that's something we're seeing too going into the summer, is we're seeing the number of registrations for our prospective student events skyrocket 100, 200% over kind of standard times. And it's because we can think of different ways to give access to classrooms, to give access to faculty, to give access to our ambassadors and current students. So to answer the question, yes, we certainly, like everybody else, are taking it day by day, but we are really excited to take some positive out of what's been an incredibly challenging and pretty negative experience for the world, and make it better for applicants moving forward.
And based on that increase in interest in registrations, I would say you're probably going to predict that there's going to be a big increase in applications overall for this next admission cycle. Of course, historically in recessions, people apply to graduate school and seek to escape the wrath of a recession, either because they've been laid off or because they've seen the opportunities in front of them in their current jobs diminish. Holly, are you expecting like really big increase in MBA applications this coming year?
I mean, we're certainly hopeful. I just, as many of my colleagues, don't have a crystal ball in terms of what will come. And I think if there's one thing we've learned over the past couple months this year is that there is so much uncertainty, and it's tough to predict, but it's pretty easy to try to be prepared. And that is something that we've been doing at Stern. Kind of along with what my colleagues have said, we've moved events to virtual formats. Our interview process is obviously entirely virtual, given the circumstances this year now. So I think we have adapted really quickly, and still maintained the soul of Stern and our value of EQ, and kind of making sure that we're still offering the opportunity to have connections with the administration and have connections with current students and alumni. And hopefully that's something that carries us into next year, because I think really the major benefit, as has been said, is that now this is kind of democratized a bit, because it's online. It's easier to be accessed. It doesn't require a plane ticket to New York, and it doesn't require a lot of other barriers that were in place. So we are going to kind of continue to find these COVID silver linings, as Rebecca mentioned, and hopefully use them to bring in some great applications for the next cycle.
Now, many schools have already announced that in the fall, they're going to go to a blended format. And of course, based on what the situation is with the pandemic, there might be more online or less online, depending on what safety measures have to be put in. Are all your schools going to have on-campus sessions, even if they're going to be blended? Holly?
Sure. Yes. So we are planning for really all possible contingency plans, with the safety of students and of the faculty and the administration being the main priority. So we're planning for a blended option, so face-to-face and virtual, the possibility of all face-to-face, and then of course the possibility of all virtual. How this will come to fruition still remains to be seen. Part of it is driven by New York City guidelines and what is permitted to be open. Some of our students live just down the street, so if they can come to class safely at a social distance, maybe that class will be offered with the virtual option for people who can't come in. So we are planning for all possible options for the fall, but we can say for the entirety of the fall semester, all classes will be available virtually in some format. So whether that's a blended option and students are permitted to come to the classroom at a safe distance, or another route that's necessary based on the circumstances.
I know a month ago when I spoke to your dean, he was telling me how even the auditoriums were being planned out so that, you know, you could have 2 seats that are empty in between each student, among other things. So there's been a lot of planning for every possible contingency.
Very much so. We're really rethinking all real estate in the building that we have and how we can safely convert it to classrooms so that should students want to and be able to come to Stern, they can do so using maybe an event space that we convert into a classroom and keep the desks at a safe distance.
Right. I'm assuming that's pretty much the way it's going to be at all the other places. Rebecca, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just had a call with Dean Amy Hillman yesterday, just providing some updates about kind of what we have planned. And it is very similar to, I'm sure, what a lot of us have planned. It's definitely challenging. Arizona State University is the largest public institution in the US. So trying to think through how do you do social distancing on elevators and stairwells and doors and so on is incredibly difficult. But we're thinking that the official announcement as far as our plans from President Crow will likely come this week. And we do anticipate that it's going to be aligned with what the CDC guidelines are at the time. So that will change as those guidelines change. But we pivot, we are very nimble. We try to, again, kind of as Holly mentioned, make sure that our number one priority is the health and safety of our students, of our faculty, of the community. So very similar plans.
Right. And Lawrence, being in New York, I mean, one thing about how New York was hit with the pandemic was, frankly, there are a lot of people with antibodies now. I mean, that's another COVID silver lining, to use Rebecca's phrase again.
At least so far as we know now. I'm not sure they're 100% certain that the antibodies will protect you from a reinfection, but yes.
That's true. That's true. So I'm sure at Pepperdine and Fordham, it's the same story. You go to a blended format, and it all depends on, the seriousness of the outbreak at that time, as well as what the local health regulations are, in determining how many classes will be online and how many will be in person, and which ones will be where. Let me ask you this, Lawrence, do you think that this is one of the best times to go and get an MBA? I mean, you look historically at the history of the degree and its success, and why it's the #1 graduate degree in the world. A lot of that has to do with, obviously, the payoff, despite the sticker price, and the value that it holds throughout one's career. But I'm thinking, right now, with the world in so much turmoil, and the clear need for leadership everywhere, and the fact that, the recession is going to be a tough one, probably, given the numbers on unemployment, and how that's going to play out over the next remaining months of this year. Do you think it's the best time almost ever to get an MBA?
I think that there's definitely an individual component to this, and so everyone needs to assess their own sort of financial health and family situation. But I was speaking with prospective students the other day, and I think this is such a unique opportunity. I totally understand the world has turned upside down, but what a great opportunity to be a part of an institution that we know all of our business schools, the faculty have research that intersects with industry. We know that industry is going to play a part in the reimagining of the U.S. economy, the economies of your sort of geographic areas, and what a unique opportunity to be right at the head of all of that, sort of knee deep. I think that this year, and probably next year as well, I think we're still going to be sort of working through things next year as well. But to be a part of that change, I think is something very special.
Yeah. Shani, I'm assuming you think it's a really good time to go and apply.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with my colleagues. So far, I think we're all on the same page, specifically speaking about the timing to invest in yourself. I see many students starting to understand that they are the best tool that they have, right, beyond their job, that security might, not be there. Some of them are losing their jobs. They see the uncertainty and they want to take action. They are so passionate to do something in the midst of, being at home and not being able to have much control about their job right now. They know that they can have control over their education and how do they develop themselves. So we help them with that. Pepperdine specifically is offering a lot of scholarships right now and ways to help make it possible for them. Similarly, we have individuals attending more events, asking more questions, looking at the return of the investment specifically. So I think we will continue definitely beyond the fall and into the next couple of years. And they want to tap into the knowledge and the wisdom and the practical experience of our faculty that can support them in making the jump into the next opportunity for them.
Yeah, true. Holly, is this the best time to apply?
I would echo Lawrence a bit in the independent decision piece. If it's the right circumstances for your health and your finances and kind of where you're at in your career, then I think absolutely. At Stern, something we talk about with our students is preparing them to navigate change and lead in times of change. And right now, that couldn't be more poignant in terms of developing the skills to navigate these times and times of crises going forward. And I think you think about an MBA case study, a lot of the conversation is around navigating a difficult situation. And this is a time when MBA students will really be able to put that into practice day to day and really be able to dig deeper, drawing on their own experiences at work over the past year or so, or in their lives. I think that it's important to think of yourself first and think of, okay, am I sound in all the other like important life ways that I can make this work? And as long as that's the case, then I think it's a really exciting time to attend business school.
Yeah. I'm also thinking there's probably a good amount of pent up demand. You know, with the economy booming as it has in the United States in particular, a lot of opportunities were available to people before that kind of delayed their decisions to go to graduate school. Those opportunities, by and large, have evaporated given the recession. And we don't know how long it's going to last, but there are some predictions it's going to last. There's no V-shape recession in store for us. So I'm thinking this is a really good time to go to grad school. Look, there are two generous gifts. The most generous gifts you can give yourself. The most generous gift is the gift of a friend that you can rely on and be confident in and trust with your secrets and your doubts and your fears. And the second most generous gift you can give yourself is the gift of education. A gift that enlarges your network of people that you know, that gives you friends for a lifetime, that gives you a network of support and encouragement throughout your career and your personal life as well, and that gives you skills and tools to take advantage of the opportunities that may come your way. And I can't think of a better investment than an MBA. Now, I may be the total no-brainer advocate for the MBA degree, and I'll confess to that. It's one degree I wish I had that I don't. Rebecca, is this the best time to get an MBA?
Well, absolutely, John. And we do have a really great executive MBA if you'd be interested in finally.
Oh, there you go.
All of yours. So yeah, absolutely. To echo my colleagues, you know, kind of what Holly and Lawrence said too, it's a very personal decision, but we do know, heard over the last several years that people have had wonderful opportunities within their work and they put it off and put it off. And so those opportunities likely aren't the case for many, many people. So, you know, as you alluded to earlier, we are going through an immense change, a paradigm shift, if you will, in the entire world. And we need people who can lead. We look even within the four of us talking about the innovation that we made in the way that we do business in the period of 2 or 3 months. So thinking through what the next leaders of the US, of the world, would be able to do armed with this education and this new network of friends that you mentioned is really incredible. And it's really exciting to think about what could come as a result of that. So yes, I think it's a wonderful time. And John, there's no time like now for you. Come on.
Let's talk about your programs. If I were to ask your students, what would be the 3 things about the MBA experience at your school that truly resonated with them? That was among the more memorable experiences, the things that they take away when they graduate. What would they say? Lawrence, let's start with you.
Sure, I think they would say the small size. We have a relatively small size program. Our incoming class is about 60 students. So those students really get to know each other really well. They get to know their faculty members really well, and they really do. It's the perfect size to build those lifelong relationships. Our students also do a month-and-a-half onboarding that we call Gabelli Launch, and in normal times, we take them to South America for about 15 days, where they do a series of student consulting projects. It's an opportunity to give them a head start on the school year, but it's also an opportunity to deepen their relationships. And, you know, we're a Jesuit school, so that community service, that business for the greater good is something that's really integrated into the fabric of who we are. So that's an opportunity to showcase that. And then I think our location in New York City, I know my colleague Holly will agree with this, being in New York City, you're really, stone's throw away from any industry that you could even imagine. And so these students really have access. I like to say, you could go and meet with an alumnus from, Time Warner and go to lunch, and then go to class in the afternoon, and then meet with someone from, JP Morgan in the late afternoon before happy hour. So I think those are the three things that would resonate most with the students if you were to ask them.
Plus, you're right next to Lincoln Center, which is a beautiful place.
Absolutely.
Okay, Shani.
Yes, so I would say the first one is the small size classes as well. We have a maximum of 27, 28 individuals in a class, usually, although we admit many more students than that. So they build personal connections with faculty and with their classmates. As you said, one of the greatest gift is a gift of a friend. So the friendships and the individual connection that is getting created, and business opportunities and networking is definitely one of the reasons they come to Pepperdine and take it with them when they graduate. They build very strong connections with their faculty, and those become their mentors. So that's a huge element of our education. The second one is definitely, as part of our onboarding process, we have a behavioral workshop. So the personal development component and becoming a leader, as Rebecca said, preparing to lead in the world is something that we focus on. So they will speak a lot about the transformative aspect of the education and who they became through the process, beyond the education, beyond the networking and the job searching, who they became as a person, the value center, the socially responsible, the ethics that is now part of their business mindset. And the third one, I would say, is the network. The alumni network here in Southern California has over 40,000 alums that are ready at any moment to meet with anyone. The location obviously is stunning, but the individuals, the community, the connections is definitely at the core of the education.
You touched on what I think is often an underappreciated part of the MBA experience, professional and personal development.
Yes.
We all know you're going to learn accounting, you're going to learn finance, strategy, marketing, operations. But what more than that, a good MBA program sands down the rough edges in people, and really does. The more transformative nature of an MBA program is the one-on-one coaching, the mentoring, all the work that goes into making you a smart, disciplined, thoughtful person, both in your personal life and in your professional life. And that's often less understood, in part because when we think about higher education, graduate experiences, we think about the subjects and the discipline, but we don't think about this professional development piece, which is unique to the MBA degree. There's no professional development at a law school. There's no professional development at med school, okay? Or go for your graduate degree in anthropology. There's no professional development. This is unique to the business school experience, and it's a very important part. And schools have devoted unbelievable resources to this function in the last quarter of a century. Holly, what are the three things that MBA graduates from Stern most remember and most appreciate when they leave the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first would be the community at Stern. I hear this countless times from our alum and from our current students. The value, we call it IQ plus EQ, but it really resonates to Stern students looking out for one another and kind of being someone that you want to work for and you want to work with. And so there are tons of stories about students who are recruiting and sharing questions and who really just got each other's backs in what otherwise might be perceived as pretty competitive situations. I think at Stern, the community really prevails in those times. Second is kind of what you're mentioning, John, about the professional development and the leadership development that kind of students go through in their time at Stern. There are a variety of leadership fellow, accelerator, simulation programs that we have the students the option to go through, as well as the career coaching and the MBA 1 to MBA 2 mentorship is really about thinking, yes, about your summer internship and yes, about that next job, but also your career and how the MBA is a piece of that. And so developing your job search skills, your networking skills, and kind of just developing into a more fully formed professional is I think the second thing they would say. And then, yes, Lawrence, I totally agree. Our New York City location is absolutely something that the students really value, and they use it in every way possible. Of course, in all the fun and tasty ways, but in also the experiential learning and the opportunity to have class in the morning, work on an experiential project with a company like HBO in the afternoon, maybe have a meeting there, and then go to a corporate presentation from a recruiter who is down the street in the evening. So again, I think the opportunities that New York City affords, sometimes at other places might require a flight. For us, it's a subway ride. And so that is really something that students, I think, value and feel like their MBA is really in and of the city. Yeah,
it's really true. And, you know, these are two very different parts of the city. NYU, of course, is in the Village, really beautiful, right off Washington Square Park. And Fordham, as I mentioned before, is right near Lincoln Center, which is, you know, one of the premier centers in the world for opera, ballet, symphony, really magnificent place. So Rebecca, what are your three things?
So, you know, at the W.P. Carey School of Business, this is where business is personal. So much like my colleagues, I think the first thing is going to be the community. I feel like we have a pretty unique position to have the best of both worlds. As I mentioned before, ASU is gigantic, largest public institution in the country. What that means is all of the good things that comes with that with regard to resources, your name recognition, the companies who come to recruit. But on the other side of the coin, we too have incredibly small class sizes, and we end up having a boutique style program where you get to know each and every one of your classmates. You get to know all of the faculty, all of the staff who is here to support you. So the community is what we hear time and time again, and it's what gives me that power and the heart flutter every time when you hear somebody say, wow, you told me it was, you know, really personal, and you meant it. It was really great. So community is number one. I think number two, some unique things about our program that our students definitely love is our Executive Connections program. So when we talk about location, we are definitely not New York City. You have to get on a plane to talk to some companies. Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the country, but it's not as urban as you might, as Manhattan, obviously. But our Executive Connections program is incredible and a huge benefit to our students because every one of our full-time students is paired with an executive mentor. And I believe that the reason why it's so popular, this program, is because of our geography in the Phoenix area, where a lot of people either choose to retire to or vacation to. So we have CEOs from across the country who travel into Tempe, into the Phoenix area to meet with and mentor our students. And they get really invaluable information and feedback and coaching and friendship from them as well. And then lastly, I would say, you know, I think we talked a lot about professional development and so on. I think it's our interdisciplinary curriculum. And I think when a lot of other people talk about an interdisciplinary curriculum, it's still under the umbrella of business. And so it's this idea of, you know, well, I studied in marketing, but I know how to speak the language of supply chain management, whatever it might be. We have capitalized being at ASU, the most innovative university in the country, by offering these interdisciplinary learning labs, where our students pair with graduate students at other schools across the university. So we've worked on projects with the School of Public Programs, with the School of Engineering, with the School of Education, on these programs that directly benefit our community and make a long-lasting impact. So I think much like a lot of business students these days, which is a wonderful change we've seen is this idea of social entrepreneurship and doing good for the community. This is definitely part of our fabric, and our students feel that sense of leaving that impact. So it's those would be the three, I would say.
I'm glad all four of you mentioned community and the collaborative nature of an MBA experience, because for many non-traditional business school students, they have this stereotypical view of the MBA as this sort of master of the universe with sharp elbows, who cares only about him or herself and only about money. And the truth of the matter is that people who are attracted to MBA programs are people that you want around your dinner table for the rest of your life. I mean, they're among the smartest, most eclectic, most caring, compassionate people you're going to find. And the degrees of cooperativeness versus competitiveness will vary from one school to another, but I think it's fairly universal that people who enter MBA programs find tremendous kinship and like-minded people in those programs. So I want to dispel the myth, and the fact that all four of you mentioned community right up front just reinforces that notion. Now, we're getting questions, and we're going to get to them shortly. But let me ask you this. You know, when I read what admissions wants in an MBA applicant, sometimes I think you want people only who walk on water. You have to have a certain GMAT or GRE score. You have to be, you know, really smooth and really accomplished. It's almost as if some of the people who apply, at least by reading the admissions requirements, don't even need an MBA because they've already been successful. So what are you really looking for, Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no doubt that we want to make sure that the students have the capacity to do well in the classroom. And so that's where at least to some extent, that's where the GMAT and GRE can be one of the data points that we look at. It. Obviously, we're looking at their undergraduate GPA to some extent and their work experience. But I think for us, and I think my colleagues would echo this, you know, I think that the more humanistic that the applicant can present themselves and authentic, that actually gives us a lot to work with. And that actually helps that transformational experience really take root and ground, not only in the student, but also in the institution as well. I think if they were perfect and walk on water, I think most of my colleagues would probably agree that sometimes those students are a challenge when they actually matriculate into the program. It's like, well, if you know everything, why did you come and get an MBA? I think there's something to be said about those students that you know, they're a little rough around the edges, and you know, those are the students who demonstrate grit and resiliency. And in the new world of an MBA, the reimagined world of an MBA that we're entering into now, I think those two variables, grit and resiliency, those are going to be two attributes that are really going to define if someone's going to be able to be successful in business school, as well as being able to lead in this sort of new economy. Yeah.
Shani, what are you looking for in an ideal MBA applicant?
I agree 100% with Lawrence. I think that was really good. And it is definitely aligned with what we're looking for. I worked for many years with an admission committee, and we used to look at individuals and think, what can we contribute to them? So if someone is coming in and they already are so accomplished, we would like to be able to contribute and develop and grow the individuals as well. Specifically, we're looking for individuals with work experience. We want them to bring their experience into the classroom. They have to have experience. We have a minimum requirement, but beyond that, they need to have good experience in business in different industries, the for-profit or the non-profit industries, sectors and different industries. We want them to have a very good academic performance. We want to make sure that they will be successful in our environment. So we look at their GPA, we look at their transcripts and the different classes that they took and the grades that they got, and we definitely look at their personal statement and their resume. And in the process, I host many coffee chats with students, and I coach them to tell a really good story and to share the journey and the resilience in the journey. We want to hear about that, and I keep encouraging them that it is okay to have challenges. We all have been through a lot, you know, each one of us. But the beauty in the story and what we're looking for is to see how they overcome those challenges and how they grew and developed themselves. So definitely to tell a full story, to showcase their work experience, their leadership, their service in their communities. Pepperdine is a faith-based institution, so those values are very important to us. So we want to see their leaderships in business and in their communities, and definitely to have a solid academic performance.
Right. Now, Holly, you mentioned before the equal emphasis on EQ as well as IQ. How does it play out in admissions at NYU Stern?
Yeah, absolutely. So the IQ plus EQ value really permeates our admissions process. The IQ piece kind of course, being the traditional smarts in terms of the GPA and the GMAT, GRE, executive assessment. And again, similar to my colleagues, that's because we want you to be successful in the classroom, and we want to set you up to really learn and enjoy your time in the academic environment. The EQ piece, though, comes in a few different ways. So we ask for 2 EQ endorsements, which is our take on the recommendation letters. And it's asking people who are in your professional and possibly personal life to kind of vouch for you. And there will be more standard questions that you might ask your EQ endorser to reflect upon around what type of colleague are you, how are you in the workplace. But then we also ask for them to talk about a time where you demonstrated EQ. And so this is a way where they can think outside the box and talk about maybe the time you were the unsung hero on the team and what were just some character traits that might not play out in a more standard work performance evaluation. Our Pick 6 is another piece of our application where you can highlight your EQ, and this is where we ask you to choose 6 pictures and add 6 short captions. The prompt is to introduce yourself to your classmates. So it's very open-ended. It's meant to be fun. I know that's tough to pair with thinking about preparing an application, but it's really open-ended for you to bring in another perspective into the application of your interests or things like in your life that are important to you, whether they're your family or your pets or a place that you volunteer. So this is another way for you to illustrate to the admissions committee just a different side of your personality outside of work and outside of school. And then finally, our interview. So at Stern, we don't interview everybody. They are by invitation only, but in order to be admitted, you do need to have an interview. The interviews are conducted with members of the admissions committee, and they're not blind. And so what that means is that your interviewer will have read your application. And this, I think, really allows the element of EQ to come to light because we don't have to really start with walk me through your resume. Rather, I see you did this project. Can we talk a little bit more about this? We can kind of dig right into the meat of the conversation. And that allows you to just really hopefully have just that, a conversation. And we can get to know each other. And just as much as we're getting to know you, you can ask us questions and get to know Stern throughout your time in the conversation. So kind of really throughout the process, we really illustrate the value of IQ plus EQ.
Right. Rebecca, are you looking for something particular at ASU's Carey School?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, and taking little bits and pieces from each of my colleagues' comments, absolutely, I loved what Lawrence mentioned about resiliency and grit. That's something that obviously in these days we have a lot of. We too spend a lot of time evaluating emotional intelligence. We do think that work experience is really necessary to be successful in the program. I would think the one thing that kept standing out to me and what I always want to see when I'm reading an application, when I'm speaking to somebody, is I want to see passion. So whatever that is for, if it's for accounting, if it is for, you know, that's not my passion, but I know it's many, many people's passions. So whatever that means to you, I just don't want to see apathy. I don't want you to have applied to an MBA program because you think that you need an MBA to do the next step in your career, or because your family says that you need to do an MBA. We all know, as well as all of our current students and alumni know, that this is a life-changing experience that is going to ask you to put so much blood, sweat, and tears into a year or two that you spend. You need to have something that you're passionate about that is driving you throughout the process. So that would be the one thing that I like to see. I always say, do not ever tell anybody in an application something you think they'd want to hear, because we can point it out immediately. We really want to hear what is important to you and what you're passionate about.
Right. Don't reiterate language on the website in your application.
Right.
Just be yourself, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If the school doesn't want you and you're yourself, well, maybe that tells you that you're not the right fit for that school. We're going to go to questions. We have one from Graham, who asked this question, which I think is very relevant to a lot of people. What caliber of applicant will typically receive financial aid in your program? We know that scholarships have become a bigger and more important part of MBA admissions, in part because the sticker price on many of the MBA programs can be quite high and daunting and off-putting for a lot of people. How do you answer that question, Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, we take a holistic approach, as I would assume my colleagues do as well, in the admissions process. And I think sometimes students think that holistic approach is really grounded just in the numbers, the quantitative metrics, how high your GMAT or GRE score is, and what your undergraduate GPA is. Those things are important to us, but we are looking at the body of work that you present to the admissions committee. And so are there students that aren't at the very top of the GMAT, GRE, and GPA range that are getting scholarships? Absolutely. And we have a wide variety of scholarships to provide our students. Actually, we created one just a couple of years ago called the Dean's Premier Scholarship that provides full tuition, a $20,000 housing stipend, an executive mentor, and a laptop. The laptop used to be cool, but now it's not so cool anymore because everybody's got a laptop.
I'll take it.
But we look at a lot of different things when we're assessing candidates, not only for admissions, but also for the assignment of a scholarship.
Shani, how about you?
Yeah, definitely looking at the entire application. However, recently we shifted to a new model. So in the part-time MBA, our GMAT is optional. It was something that COVID definitely encouraged us to go in that direction. So to say that in reviewing applications, we will look at the GMAT score, it's somewhat unfair. So we needed to shift our model in terms of the criteria and the rubric that we created to reflect that as well. So as I said before, we're looking at your academic performance and the years of experience that you have. So the higher those two variables, the more financial support the individual will get in merit scholarship. However, as Lauren said, if individuals have less work experience, or they might have 10 or 15 years of work experience, but their undergraduate degree has a GPA of 2.9, we definitely will consider them. We will review their appeal. There's an appeal process. We will consider them, and if we have the funds and we see the potential, we definitely will invest in them. So I love that about Pepperdine, because we want to make the education accessible to individuals. And that's the bottom line, is how can we help invest in individuals to invest in themselves and grow themselves as leaders. So.
Yep. And Rebecca, I know that Amy Hillman at the Carrier School took a very courageous decision a few years ago on scholarship. And it's my belief, you correct me if I'm wrong, that Carrie actually offers a scholarship to every admit of some kind. Is that still true?
Yes, for our full-time MBA program, and I'm glad, Shani, you mentioned accessibility, because that's something that's incredibly important to us, is the idea of access. So with our full-time MBA program, every student will be awarded a scholarship. We're incredibly, incredibly lucky with our private donor sponsors and our namesake, the W.P. Carey Foundation, to be able to have this, again, passion of investing in education and the future leaders. So for our full-time program, many students get a full tuition scholarship. You can expect that if you're admitted, you'll be able to receive a scholarship anywhere from 50% to 100% plus a stipend. So outside of the full-time MBA program, we still have a lot of opportunities for students based on merit, based on that holistic view. But yes, scholarships are definitely part of our fabric to make sure that it goes along with the charter of ASU, in that we want to be defined in who we include and not by who we exclude and how they succeed. So giving them an opportunity to be able to attend and not be saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt is something we're happy to be able to help with.
Holly, who gets money and who doesn't get money at Stern? And is it on merit or need or both?
Sure. So the admissions committee reviews everybody for merit-based scholarships. It's simply a box on the application to check that you'd like to be considered. And so the scholarship decisions are made by the admissions committee at the time of admission. And the thing that I really like about this process is that we have scholarships for all different areas that are not exclusive to a high GMAT or to a certain identity or to a certain industry. We have them really running the gamut. So you might be getting a faculty scholar, for example, and paired with a faculty member in our strategy department because you've just shown really great career progression and have great recommendations from your career thus far as an analyst at a consulting firm, maybe. Or maybe it's Advancing Women in Business Scholarship because you've been part of different employee working groups that are promoting women at your company. So those are just two examples of many that really, I think, demonstrate that Stern is trying to find ways to award scholarships to as many people as possible, and then especially in groups that are underrepresented in the business landscape, and again, improving that access for them to be able to come to Stern. Right.
And since I have you here, Holly, let me ask you this question from someone. And we have a bunch of questions, so what I'm going to try to do is get each of you to answer different ones. Here's a person who has an engineering master's degree with a 3.2. An undergraduate degree in engineering, I'm assuming, at 2.6. The question is, does his 3.2 offset his 2.6, which is obviously well below the class average at Stern?
Sure. So I don't know if I'll give an exact admissions consultation to this one person in such a group setting. I will say, though, that we don't have a minimum GPA cutoff. And so we, of course, will look at your undergrad, but we will also look at that grad school transcript. And the thing that sticks out to me as a member of the committee and something that we discussed is that there's a clear upward trajectory in your academic background. And I think that's a lot of what we mean in admissions when we say holistic. That word gets thrown around a lot. And in this case, I think what that means is looking at the big picture here of the academics. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking to answer, can this person handle the classroom and the exams and the case studies? And looking at your full trajectory in a classroom, you've really grown and you've really shown that you know how to study, you know how to take a test, you know how to prepare yourself much better now than you did probably when you were 18 or 19. And that really stands out as someone as, okay, hey, this person has really demonstrated some self-growth and reflection of how they can be a student, which I think goes back to what we look at when we think of a holistic review.
Right. The other thing is, this is a difficult major, engineering.
Exactly.
You know, to get 3.2 in your master's program in engineering might be different than getting a 3.2 in philosophy or geography, or in my subjects, political science and English. So they may give you little credit for that. On the other hand, if you are in a part of the applicant pool that is highly overrepresented, you're going to be competing with people who have a master's degree in engineering and undergraduate degree in engineering with GPAs that could be much higher and from better schools, so that's a factor. Another way to offset lower than class average GPAs is with better GMATs or GRE scores. But as everyone here has said, you know, it is a holistic process. That's the beauty of MBA applications. and admissions. It's not you get a score and you get in. There are plenty of people who have great standardized test scores who are rejected routinely from all these schools. Now, here's a good question. It's how does the experience at Fordham and Pepperdine differ from other schools, given that they're Jesuit institutions? Shani?
Well, I think that's a very good question. Pepperdine is a unique institution in many ways, and I have to say and share that I'm not only an alumna of the program and at the graduate business school, but I also was blessed to be with the school for 11 years as a staff member in different capacities. And during COVID and seeing the leadership of the school, and especially because it is a faith-based institution, is so moving for me. So I'm thinking about all the amazing schools in the US and in California specifically. I know that Pepperdine is different because of our mission and our vision and our values and what is important to us in the core of our teaching. So specifically being a value-based institution that we focus on the individual and their contribution to other people. And our mission is to develop best for the world leaders. So I don't know if it is the same in any other institution. I also know that unlike research-based institution, Pepperdine is a practical institution where our faculty are practitioners working in the field. So many of them are consultants. They have their own consulting practices. A lot of them are CEOs of hospitals that are coming and teaching in the classroom. So you get that sense. You teach from individuals that bring knowledge directly from the field into the classroom. And I think that's the uniqueness of the institution.
Lawrence, similar answer?
Yeah, similar answer. I think, we try to interweave the Jesuit ideals into everything that we do, including the admissions process. So the pursuit of excellence, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom, respect for the world, its history and its mystery, applied learning, contemplative thinking, personal potential, critical thinking and effective communication, appreciation of things both great and small. And then, of course, I think the thing that underlies everything is our commitment to service. So we integrate that into everything that we do, whether it's the admissions process, the job search process with the Career Development Center, our sort of alumni development process. Throughout the entire experience, you're getting bits and pieces of those Jesuit ideals.
Okay, I'm going to leave the last question for Rebecca, and this relates to the extended deadline strategies to attract more applicants and give people a little more time given the pandemic. How would you describe the quality of the applicant pool since introducing the extended admissions process? Has there been any change in work experience, GPA, and GMAT of the applicants? Rebecca?
Yeah, so for us, I think kind of along the lines of what my colleagues have said, quality is such an interesting word because I think everybody who applies to the program has quality. I mean, there's something that everyone has to add. As far as the preparedness and ability to be successful in the classroom, I actually think we've seen a little bit of an increase in our extended deadline applicants because, again, we're seeing a lot of those people who perhaps were part of a downsizing in a company who were incredibly strong. Again, Dean Hillman and her infinite innovation is working with a lot of local companies who might have to think about downsizing and finding somewhere for them to land here at WP Carey. So we're seeing some incredible students really look to this time as kind of what we had talked about before. Is this the best time for an MBA? They have made that decision that absolutely it has, and I'm going to move forward. So we've seen it to be very positive and very encouraging.
Great. Well, listen, what a wonderful time it's been to meet and talk with all four of you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. I want to remind everyone that if you have other questions or just want to meet Shani, Lawrence, Rebecca, or Holly, you can do so in our chat rooms, which immediately follow. Otherwise, I want to thank each and every panelist for being so open and candid and showing up. Showing up is a big deal, okay, in this world, right? So Holly Curtis at Stern, thank you. Rebecca Mellon at ASU's WP Carey
you.
School of Business, thank you. Lawrence Murray at Fordham, next to Lincoln Center. One of my favorite places. And Shani Mahalu at one of the most beautiful college campuses in the world, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. If I went to class there, I'd be staring out the windows all the time, not concentrating on anything that happened. Thank you all for joining us. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Hey, thank you for watching and listening and absorbing the information. And again, I'll invite you to join Holly, Rebecca, Lawrence, and Cheney in our chat rooms. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.